Hello and welcome to Hooting Mandrills. I'm Sam.
I'm Jeremy.
And we're going to continue delving into Magic Foundations with black cards, starting with Abyssal Harvester. 1 and 2 black. 3/2, dies to cut down, but good creature type, Demon Warlock, and it has a tap ability to exile target creature card from a graveyard that was put there this turn, create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a nightmare in addition to its other types, then exile all other nightmare tokens you control. So you can only maintain one of these tokens at once. So we've seen Unholy Annex show up a lot at Worlds. It turns out that if you put enough upside on a Phyrexian Arena, it starts to look more like a card that's still playable in 2024. If you staple a mana sink that also makes it, and maybe the ability to make it drain your opponent, it's pretty good. And this is, so any card that's a demon immediately gets a lot better because Unholy Annex is so good. This does make tokens, so maybe Caretaker's Talent, another sort of engine card, might care about this. It is pretty hard to turn on. It's sort of like Reenact the Crime. The thing you want to get back has to hit the bin that turn, which is awkward, especially on a body that's a little fragile, but it can also be put under a cauldron and give other creatures this ability, which is maybe something. I think it's probably not, this is probably not all one deck, but 3-drop Demon into maybe more is a card that could see some standard play.
I think this card's playable. I like it kind of is a little holding you back a little bit, that it gets rid of your other nightmares, so you can't like continue to stack up exiled creatures and, you know, do all that sort of stuff. But it's fun. It also takes things out of your graveyard for Thirsting Roots. Another deck. Insidious Roots. I mean, not Thirsting Roots. That's the
different card that is also legal and standard, but not as exciting
good with this card. Yeah.
But yeah, that does stuff.
It's a demon. Makes tokens. Has an activated ability. These are things that we can exploit in a format.
Here's things that will be exploited in a format, just probably not standard. Blasphemous Edict, 3 and 2 black. Sorcery, you may pay black rather than pay the spell's mana cost if there are 13 or more creatures on the battlefield. Each player sacrifices 13 creatures. This is sort of like a Blasphemous Act, which is the, I believe, most played red card in Commander, at least now that Dockside's banned. In Standard, it's not gonna do that. Gonna be a 5-mana Wrath. You have Deadly Cover-Up, which is probably better. Season of Loss is an Edict Wrath. If you care about that probably kills enough and has more flexibility.
Commander players will love this card. Everybody else doesn't care. All right, let's move on.
You won't have to count beyond your fingers
and toes.
You won't have to take a sock off to know if you can pay the black for this. It's never happening.
Okay, this is a cool card in Bloodthirsty Conqueror, 3 and 2 black for a 5/5 Vampire Knight with Flying and Death Touch. Whenever an opponent loses life, you gain that much life. So, you know, I'm always forgetting, is this one Sanguine Bond, or is this one just whatever in blood? I don't know. It's part of the Fisher Price very first combo, you know, oh, I gain life, then you lose life, or I lose life, you know, that kind of thing. So it infinite combos with some cards we have in Standard, like Enduring Tenacity or a Starscape Cleric.
Also Marauding Blight Priest in Foundations, so you can even maybe do this in Limited.
So yeah, I mean, for 5, you can already have your other piece already out. Then you just have to either gain life or lose life to start your infinite cycle of triggers that end the game. But yeah, I don't know.
As far as these sort of like 1/2 wombo combos, I kind of think the various Bloodletter of Aclazot's combos are a little better, but this is one. Enduring Tenacity is a little hard to kill. There could be Starscape Cleric, if you kick it, produces multiple bodies, which makes it a little hard to kill. So maybe this will do something, but most likely not that good, but something to be aware of.
Yeah, I mean, I think once again, fun more for the commander players who can just like find every card in your deck is either one of these two abilities, and then eventually you find your combo somehow. But it's fun. It's fun to have simple combos to teach new players about that kind of gameplay.
Dread Summons. I believe this is a reprint from a commander set. X black sorcery. Each player mills X cards. For each creature card put into a graveyard this way, create a tapped 2/2 black zombie. So as far as this sort of thing, probably worse than Outrageous Robbery, Breach the Multiverse. Not too much more to say.
Yeah, I mean, people were playing 1 or 2 copies of Robbery at the Worlds in some of their mid-range decks, but this card is just worse, so I don't know. Maybe in some kind of mill strategy, this card, I don't think so. All right, let's move on. Okay, now we're gonna look at High Society Hunter for 3 and 2 black. We have a 5/3 flying. Whenever this creature attacks, you may sacrifice another creature. If you do, put a 1/1 counter on this creature. Whenever another non-token creature dies, draw a card. So yeah, it's expensive for a 5/3 sacrifice only on attack. I don't see this card being very playable in 60 card.
Yeah, costs a lot, dies a lot. It's a commander card. Next we have Kalastria Highborn. For 2 black, it's a 2/2 vampire shaman. And whenever this creature or another vampire you control dies, you may pay black. If you do, target player loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Having to pay black on a death trigger is going to be really awkward. This card's probably not going to be great, but in something like Pioneer, could be sort of cool to Pioneer, or maybe Historic, could be sort of cool to do some sort of vampire-based Black Devotion deck, which would produce a lot of mana. We also have Gatekeeper of Malakir, another card that's probably not quite there, but maybe in this sort of shell. In Historic, you have Sanguine Brushstroke and can still do the Sorin Ripper thing. We're also going to be getting Urborg, and we talked a little bit about Expedition Map in colorless, so the shitty Cabal Coffers Cabal Stronghold is maybe looking a little less embarrassing. There might be some sort of big mana type of deck that could play a shell like this. Probably a reach though.
Yeah, this card is a reprint, but I don't think it was already in Pioneer. All right, let's take a look at the next card. We have Myojins returning to
just one.
Just one, and this isn't the black one that already existed. I don't think, is it?
I think it is. This is a reprint from Old Kamigawa. Yeah, Myojin of Night's Reach, 5 and 3 black, costs a zillion, 5/2 legendary spirit, enters with a divinity counter if you cast it from your hand. So if you pay the zillion, it actually has text and isn't just a 5/2. It has indestructible as long as it has divinity counter on it. Remove a divinity counter to have each opponent discard their hand. So I assume this is a card people enjoy playing in Commander to proliferate and continually nuke their opponent's hands. If you can produce a zillion mana, you can maybe live that dream in Standard. There is Proliferate now. Probably not that good.
Yeah, I don't think this card's playable in 60 card very much at the moment. Next up, we have 9 Lives Familiar, another proliferate-y kind of card, potentially, with a colorless and 2 black for a cat 1/1. This creature enters with 8 revival counters on it when you cast it. When this creature dies, if it had a revival counter on it, return it to the battlefield with 1 fewer revival counter on it at the beginning of the next end step.
This card's fun. I don't know if it's very good, but I would like it to be. 3 mana is a lot for a 1/1, but it just does a lot of cute things, including being a cat, I guess. Sort of sacrificey fodder. It does only come back at the beginning of the next end step, so you're not just using your free sack outlet 9 times in a row when you play this thing, but, it's there. It's fodder. We have a Blood Artist effect in Standard forever now. I've talked about my love for Immersturm Predator. If you're trying to do some sort of cute thing that just just cares about counters in large numbers, regardless of what kind they are, like all will be one, or maybe putting Luxior Gyada's Gift on... Oh, Luxior is rotated out of Standard. Yeah, so ignore that, but I had forgotten it wasn't in Standard because it never did anything there. But all will be one is still there. If you play this with an all will be one and play it 8 balls something, if this thing dies with an all will be one and play it somewhere between 1 and 7 balls something. It's a brew that I at least want to try.
Yeah, a little bit clunky, I think. 2 black and then 2 red and so many expensive cards, but it is silly, and I think that's fun to try.
Fable of the Mirror Breaker will solve all my mana problems. That card's still in Standard, like Gyada's Gift, right?
Yeah, the same way that Gyada's Gift is Fable. If you believe hard enough, you can just play a Fable of the Mirror Breaker in Standard. I mean, not really, but Unholy Annex is kind of the new Fable, so doesn't actually play well with this card. But
Tinybones, Bauble Burglar, legendary skeleton rogue. 1/3. Whenever an opponent discards a card, exile it from their graveyard with a stash counter on it. During your turn, you may play cards you don't own with stash counters on them from exile. And mana of any type can be spent to cast those spells. And for 3 and a black and tap, you can make each opponent discard a card as a sorcery.
So we have some, we'll talk Standard first, I guess. We have some discard. I mean, people were trying to play Bandit's Talent, Hopeless Nightmare decks for a little bit, with usually the Vraska being the way the deck finished the game off. Maybe this card is playable in that strategy. I think that more likely, though, Waste Not is the home. You could probably sneak this guy into a couple of Waste Not decks for the older formats.
Yeah, Pioneer Waste Not really needs 8 copies of Waste Not to be functional. A Waste Not player that I talked to, shout out Mike Preventure, MTG Scribe. He's also the reason I knew to look at the Jumpstart cards to do this set review. Yeah, it plays a lot of Waste Not, very much a discard enjoyer, and he said he thought this card might even be better than Waste Not. I don't know that that's true, but if you get to cast a spell off this, you're pretty happy. It has to live, and it has to live after you get the discard effect, or you have to find another one. But if you really need 8 copies of Waste Not, and if you're trying to play Waste Not, you probably do, because the deck is pretty non-functional if it doesn't have one. This card might get you there. It's also a skeleton. Corpse of the Lost is still in Standard. Pretty good Lord effect payoff for skeleton types. Being a legend along with the other Tinybones that's in Standard might mean that you can play Tinybones joins up either alongside Hopeless Nightmare or in that slot a little more effectively to get some sort of skelly stuff going.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a cool card. Definitely for the Waste Not players to decide if this is... I mean, playing your opponent's spells for any color is often very powerful. People often have to discard cards that they want to play, you know? That's sort of the whole point of making them discard them in the first place. So I think this guy's good.
Next we have Ashur, Lich Lord. 1 and a black, 2/2, legendary zombie warlock, ward pay 2 life, and it can tap to cast zombie creatures from your grave. You can cast target zombie creature from your graveyard this turn. Zombies don't have a lot going for them in Standard right now. All the Innistrad zombies have rotated. There are some in this set, but I feel like you really needed like Champion of the Perished and a few others to fill out the curve to be that interested in a card like this. There's Glissa, which is a really good zombie, but at 3, like you're not playing this just to go with Glissa. Like, you need an actual zombie deck, and I don't think there really is one right now. It's not nothing though. It's another cauldronable ability, like Warren Soul Trader, which we've seen do some combo-y stuff in older formats. This might also be a relevant piece in a deck like that, but it has relevant zombies, relevant cauldron synergies.
We may see more zombies to come. So, I mean,
yeah, they will
in
put
5
zombies
years.
into Standard eventually, and this card may do more at that.
But cool card for now. We'll just keep an eye out for some more zombies. All right, now we have our reprints. We have Phyrexian Arena, which is already in Standard.
Death Baron is a bad lord if you're trying to live that skeleton dream. Demonic Pact is actually likely to be pretty good in Standard. It's very easy to sacrifice. Harmless Offering is also in Foundations. Stuff going for it. Liliana is a big thing to play to and maybe play. Wishclaw Talisman is around as a combo card. Runescarred Demon, maybe if you're building your Omniscience deck in such a way where you're trying to use Demonic Council. This is a thing you can find off that when you don't have Delirium and like continue going off if there's a combo that wins the game off of Omniscience. There's stuff here.
Massacre Worm's back. I mean, we already have that other one that is a little better.
Harvester of
Misery, but the two life thing is not necessarily important. So maybe somebody is going to play a Massacre Worm. I used to play a lot of Massacre Worm when Standard was slower.
I've cast some Massacre Worms in my time. I've cast some Midnight Reapers too. Card I enjoy. A lot of competition at 3, but it's here.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to lower rarity cards. Any Port in a Storm for our boy Karamonix. Actual Factual Burglar Rat is back in Standard. We have functionally Burglar Rat in Nizumian format, but you can play 8 now if you're desperate to play rats.
Yeah, you don't want to play 4 of this card in the rat strategy particularly, but it's there. All right. Next up we have Deadly Plot. 3 colorless and a black. For an instant, choose 1, destroy target creature planeswalker, or return target zombie creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped.
Instant 4 mana, relevant things. They love printing newer, bigger, dumber, big dumb idiots for reanimation type targets. Maybe one of them will be a zombie technically at some point. Right now there's not really anything for this card.
Yeah, it's still probably draftable, maybe not. Maybe there's no zombies in the set really to bring back. There's that big turtle. Oh, that's in Jumpstart, so that's not draftable. Never mind, nothing to do with this card. All right, next.
Sideboard cards. One maybe main deckable card in Knight of Malice. Deathmark is powerful if your opponent is playing green or white creatures. Feed the Swarm is here, sort of compares with a Withering Torment or whatever other enchantment removal, but I guess just Withering Torment if you need black enchantment removal.
Hurts to use this on a Leyline Binding, but yeah, somewhat interesting cards once again with the Knight. If you can be playing the white permanent to give this guy the +1.
All right, we got some sacrificey cards at lower rarities. Infestation Sage is basically a Doom Traveler in black. 1/1 when it dies, you make a 1/1 flyer. Cool. Doom Traveler's been somewhat playable at points. This is a new thing. Having it in black is a better sacrifice color. Yeah, could see some play in various places as a fodder creature. Sacking stuff is often good in Pauper. This is a good thing to sack to Deadly Dispute. Eaten Alive is we see a version of this effect every set basically in Limited. This is the version that is playable in Standard. It has the buyout. It targets creatures and planeswalkers. It exiles. Can't play it in or not good enough in any older format. But if you're playing Sack in Standard, this is a good thing to have. And we got a couple creatures in Hungry Ghoul, sort of fixed Carrion Feeder or Carrion Feeder at home. 1 in a black, 2/2. For 1, it can sack a creature to put a 1/1 counter on itself. And then Vampire Gourmand. When it attacks, you can sack a creature to draw a card and make it unblockable.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know that any of these cards are super powerful, but potentially enablers for other strategies for more powerful cards around them.
Yeah, these are nuts and bolts cards that at various points could be what you want in a sacrificey deck.
Next up, we have Reassembling Skeleton, which is a 1/1 for a generic and a black. For a Skeleton Warrior, 1 and a black, return this card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So it does some things, Insidious Roots things, where it leaves your graveyard. Does Corpse of the Lost things, being a skeleton. Yeah, I don't know.
And another pretty fillery card. Yeah, it's an instant speed way to trigger roots. Doesn't do anything really with Tyvar, but if you trigger roots, your roots creatures with Tyvar can tap for mana immediately to maybe to activate this thing and get more roots creatures. It, again, fillery creature, could have some homes if you're desperate for skeleton typing or a way to trigger roots from the bin. Vampire Nighthawk, reprint 1 and 2 black. Flying Death Touch Lifelink, 2/3. Yeah, not really there. A lot of things would have to happen for this card to be constructed playable. Again, one of those things is probably cut down rotating, but it's around. It's a keyword soup card if you're looking for those for scavengers. People remember it fondly.
Yeah, I remember it fondly. But yeah, dies to cut down. Okay, next we have Zombify, another, they really want Reanimator to happen. For 3 and a black, sorcery, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. We have quite a few of these, but this will be the one in draft.
This is also sort of setting the paradigm for what reanimation spells are going to look like in Standard. Most reanimation spells that we've seen the past few years have been 5 mana with upside, something like Cruelty of Gix or Coiling Rebirth. The ones that are less than 5 mana either come with some big deck building restriction, or usually come with some big deck building restriction. You have to play a ton of permanents and mill a ton of permanents to make Squirming Emergence work. The color requirements on Rite of the Moth are pretty intense. This is our new generic rate for reanimation, is now 4 mana, and that's relevant to know.
Yeah, but that's really all that there is to talk about with this card. I mean, it returns things. Oh, but that's all of our cards in black. So make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and check us out for our next color.